Thanks to FEU Alabang's ACM for inviting me to give this talk. So, the next step, right? Remote repositories. So far, lahat ng ginawa natin is local lang. Nasa machine ko lang. Okay, so there's no way for you or for someone else to access the stuff we've done. No? Ito, tsaka to, no way na makikita anyone online kung anong ginawa natin dito. Okay? Existing. So, remember G Drive and Teams. What if I told you may G Drive or Teams para sa Git? And that is GitHub, no? Doon pumapasok yung GitHub. So, kung may nagtatanong anong difference ng Git tsaka GitHub, hopefully, ngayon alam nyo na ano yung difference. Okay? So, GitHub and other websites, no? Hindi lang naman GitHub yung parang ganyan. Meron din tayong GitLab, Bitbucket, stuff like that, no? Primarily, they host remote repositories, no? They're built on a Git server. Yun yung term for that. So, they add more features around Git, no? Like protected branches, teams and orgs, no? May progress tracking tayo, and overall, it's a better collaborative coding experience. So, another question from the audience, how important is GitHub to the modern workspace? So, I've worked at a lot of projects na since college, no? Sabihin natin, more or less 10 projects, and I've worked at 3 or 4 organizations na. All of them gumagamit ng GitHub. Siguro 1 or 2 gumagamit ng GitLab, pero still, you could see how important GitHub is, no? Yun nga, it's very important. So what can we do with remote repositories? So if we find an existing repository sa GitHub, we can clone it, no? We can also set up our own remote repo using an origin. Later on, I'll tell you what that is. And then update our local and update our remote by pulling and pushing. So let's demonstrate that. Okay? So I did prepare a dummy account for now. No? I did prepare. So I'll go to GitHub, no? So I'll sign in. No, you should make your own account here. Test 1, Panganiban, right? So, gawa tayo ng repository natin. Okay, so what if yung existing project natin, like this, gusto natin i-upload? Okay? So, una, let's just tackle how to make a repository. So, let's create a repository over here. And then, anong name? So, sabihin natin, sige, sample repo 1. No, you could place your own description here. You could choose it to be public or private. I think now, unlimited yung private, pero dati may bayad dyan. Okay, you could add the readme file kagad, pero that's also an extra step. You could do any of these, no? Pero for now, let's not do that. Okay, so create ako repo. Right now, wala pa siyang laman. Okay, to show you what something na may laman looks like, no? Harap tayo dito, VLC, something. No, if you're familiar with VLC Media Player, and dyan siya, open source yan. Ganyan yung itsura na may laman. You could see na may files na siya, then may readme siya, stuff like that. Okay? So how do we connect this to this? Okay, yun yung tanong. How do we connect it? So, eto, diba, we set up a remote repo with an origin. No? How do we set that up? How do we link this? So, what we do is we add a remote. So, git remote, then add, and then yung name ng remote natin. It can be anything. No, it can be Carlos. No, it can be Carlos. It can be FEU. It can be Alabang. No, anything you want. Pero the industry standard is, ginagamit natin is origin. Okay, git remote, add origin. No? So, right now, kulang pa yan. kailangan natin ng URL or ng path nung remote na yon. So right now, we could just use this. No, kita din natin dito, we could also use this na may .git. Okay? So, let's paste that in. So, I'll show you this one common error with Windows systems. So, kung magka-Control V ako, no, or Control Shift B, or ano pa yung mga pwede, no? Actually, mukhang disable ko yung Control V over here. Oh, disable ko nga. Kasi kung na-Control V ka and then nag-paste ka, medyo magkaka-problem yan. Okay, so right now, medyo ganyan lang yung formatting. Okay, medyo, kasi shift insert yung paste, shift insert. Then, yan, so sabi niya, remote origin already exists. So, kapag na-Control V ka, may error yan. So, sabihin niya, HTTPS is not a valid protocol or something. No? So, kung nga nagagawa akong bagong remote ko, something sample, no? Or error, git remote add error, no? Gawin kong ganyan, no? Oh, that's new. So, usually kapag malito, sasabihin niya hindi supported yung protocol. Kasi sinusupport niya is HTTP and HTTPS. Okay, so kapag naka-Control V ka kasi, may na-introduce na secret character here. No, na hidden character. Then sasabihin niya hindi available. So you might get that error. And my suggestion is you should use kung ano man yung paste hotkey na ginagamit. So shift insert. Shift home yung nagawa ko. Right? So shift insert yung paste. No? So let's go here. Na-add na yung remote natin. Okay, now we have to push our code. No? We have to update our remote branches by pushing. So yung nasa store sa isang remote repository ay parang local din na may sarili siyang branches, stuff like that. No? So, again, I do suggest you work with this kasi alam ko may mga remote practice to. No? So, may remote section over here and then you could work with it. Okay? So, again, let's go ahead and try pushing our project over here. No, pupush natin to dito kasi right now wala pa rin. So kung refresh ko, wala pa rin yan. Okay? So basically we just say git push and then anong name ng remote natin, in this case origin. No? And then anong branch yung gusto natin. So in this case master branch. No? So yun, so sabi niya protocol HTTPS is not supported. Okay? Kasi yung remote natin, nag-paste tayo gamit Control V kanina. Di ba nagganyan tayo? May inintroduce yan na hidden character. Okay? So, i-reset up natin yung remote natin. I think it's git remote rm. Let's go try do that. Git remote rm origin is to remove. Okay? So, if we do git push origin, sasabihin niya does not appear. Okay, sige, tama. Git remote add origin and then pwede ko nang sara yan. So, let's go ahead and copy this. Shift, insert. Then, try natin i-push ulit. Okay, now it works. Okay, kanina nagka-error tayo na HTTPS not ano. So, right now, sinasabi niya, dine-deny yung permissions ko. Kasi, nakaset up sa computer ko is my account talaga sa Git. Okay? Ginagamit niya yung user ko. Okay? So, right now, user ko is this. No? So, requested error 403 forbidden. Ibig sabihin yan, hindi tinanggap ng Git. Okay. So, how do we remedy that? Pwede natin alisin yung configuration ko dito. Pero, right now, I would rather just set this up in my own account. Okay? So, in my own account, ito yung GitHub. Over here, kita nyo yung GitHub ko, meron ng laman. Right? So, we make a new repository, no? Kanina, sample repo 1, no? create. Then again, we could just rewrite our origin. Shift insert. Okay, and then push tayo. Okay? So, if you're new to this stuff, usually magtatanong siya ng credentials mo. Username mo, password mo. Kasi, kung hindi tayo naggawa ng ganun, edi anyone can just push to your repo, which we do not want. No? So, kung refresh ko yan, magkaka-index.html siya. Then, when I open it, ganyan. Okay. Works, di ba? So, what if I go ahead and edit this file? No? Nilagyan ko ng my edit from GitHub. No? You could do that actually. Then gagawa ka ng bagong commit sa GitHub na mismo. So you don't have to go through the terminal here. No? So sige, just use the default stuff. No? So right now, yung stuff natin sa origin, hindi siya match sa stuff natin sa master. Kasi sa master, wala pa yung from GitHub, no? So what we can do is, una, we can fetch it, no? So if I do git fetch, right? If that doesn't work, well, usually it just fetches from origin. So magkakabagong branch sa local natin, origin/master. So I think I say it here. So you should treat a remote branch as another branch. Okay? So, ginawa natin sa git fetch is dinownload natin yung branch natin dito. And then, nilagay lang natin sa repo natin. Okay? Nilagay lang natin siya. Wala pa tayong ginawang iba. So, kita nyo wala pa yung message here. Okay? And then, we could check out that branch, right? Origin master yung pangalan ng branch na yun. No, and then makikita natin yung my edit from GitHub. Okay? Then, pero wala tayo sa master. So, let's go back to master, and then to apply those changes, we could just do git merge origin master. No, and then yung master natin magiging ganyan na. Okay? So, kung titignan natin yung steps na nangyari, nag-git fetch tayo, and then nag-git merge tayo. Right? So, we could combine this into one command, actually. So, let's make another change over here. No? Gawa tayo ng my edit from GitHub to commit changes. No, gawa tayong bagong change. So, instead of doing these two, we just say pull. Okay? So, git pull origin master. Okay? So, note again, this is just a branch name na nasa local natin. Ito, it's the name of the remote and then the name of the branch we want to pull from. So in this case, master. Okay? So, git pull na natin yan. Yan, kita natin yung change. Andyan na siya. So again, if we want to make another change here, my edit from my machine, 3 or something. No. We just make another commit, add the message from local, then git push origin master. And then ganyan yung workflow mo. Okay, one of the questions na nababato din sa akin, do I have to push every time I commit? The answer is no. Pwede ka mag-ipon ng 100 commits and then doon ka pala mag-push. Pwede yun. Pero yung disadvantage mo doon is kung may teammate ka, hindi niya agad nakikita yung latest changes mo. So, before ka umalis sa PC mo or kung may papa-edit ka sa teammate mo, it's better na i-push mo muna yung changes, no? So, na-cover na natin yung pulling, na-cover na natin yung pushing. Let's also cover cloning, like really quick. Sabihin natin, to sample repo, di ba? Gusto kong gumawa ng kopya nito. Kunyari, ako yung teammate mo. Okay, teammate, i-download mo to. No, para we can work on the same project, no? So cd, labas tayo dyan. So gawa ako pwede akong gumawa ng bagong folder, right? And then, ilagay ko siya doon, pero in this case, wag muna. So sasabihin ko lang git clone, right? Git clone and then our URL. Yan, again, shift insert, not control V. And then cloning into this folder, sample repo 1. Then kung titignan natin, yung mga folders natin, andito siya ngayon, which contains kung ano man yung updated information in our GitHub. No? So, let's go to sample repo 1. No? And then, buksan natin yung code dito. You could see na it's identical to whatever we have sa repository. Okay? Now, ito yung catch natin dito. Okay? Yung catch natin is yung GitHub software siya nag-a-add sa Git. In theory, pwede kang mag-setup ng sarili mong Git server. Okay? Na gagawa ako ng, kunyari, Git server sa website ko. Ganun. So, meron akong Git remote add origin at carlospanganiban.com/my-something.git. No? You could do that. And that's what bigger companies do. Kasi kahit private yung Git server, kahit private yung GitHub, no, you could make your own private repositories, hindi pa rin siya truly private, no? Kasi sino may-ari ng GitHub? Microsoft. So, kung ako si Facebook, naka-upload sa GitHub yung code ko in a private repository, nakikita ng Microsoft yung code ko, yung source code ko sa Facebook, which in many cases I don't want to happen. So what Facebook does is may sarili siyang Git server, and doon nangyayari yung version control among their teams. No? You can set up your own Git server. Okay? So actually you can just search that. Okay, Git server setup. No, kung search ko yung Git server setup, yan, may mga tutorials online how to create your own Git server. And then dun kayo mag-push if you want to be like quote-unquote truly private or something. Okay? Wala nga lang siyang features na GitHub na additional na later on we'll see. Okay? Pero if you do want to run your own GitHub, you can. No, you can run your own instance of GitHub called GitHub Enterprise. No? GitHub Enterprise server na in-offer ng GitHub din. I'm not advertising, I'm just making you knowledgeable that this is an option. Na mag-setup ka ng GitHub, ng sarili mong image ng GitHub, and then, yun, no, secure siya. Kasi sa'yo siya eh. Nasa machine mo siya. Okay? So let's go back. Alam na natin to. And then again, I do remind the audience na this can be done by using a Git server lang. Kahit walang GitHub, pwede. Okay? Provided you do have a Git server. Okay? Pero we don't. That's why we use websites like GitHub to host our repositories remotely. Okay. Question from the audience. Can I add a project to GitHub without using the command line? Again, sinagot ko to kanina, yun nga, you do run the risk of lack of ubiquity if you're using a machine na walang desktop environment. Okay? So what to do with the remote repos? Yeah, we do push-pull by branch, and origin is just a name. You could choose any name you want, pero origin is the industry standard. Okay? So, yun nga na-mention ko na to, remote branch as another branch. So when you do a pull, what happens, di ba, sinabi ko kanina, is we fetch the data from the internet and then na-merge siya automatically to our local branches. So ano implications nun? Yung merge conflicts natin kanina can still happen during a pull. Okay? So, on the other hand naman, before you can push, you have to match the remote branch. No? So, just to show you, nagawa ko ng change dito. Okay? Sabihin ko, you can't push without seeing this message. Right? I could do that. No? So, right now, wala siya. Di pa ako nag-pull. Then, if I do try to push it, No, if I do try to push it, no? So, actually, gawa ko ng bago. My edit from my machine 4. No? Sabihin natin, hindi ako aware na yung kaibigan ko, nag-update pala siya ng repository, nag-push pala siya. Kunyari, hindi ako aware. No? So, git add, ganyan. Gumawa ko sarili kong commit. No? Add my edit na lang para mabilis. Oops, di ba na-save? Oh, I'm outside. Okay? So, gumawa akong commit and then you would see the error na hindi pa ako nag-pull before I made the commit. So, kung magpupush ako ngayon, no, sasabihin ni Git sa akin na, teka lang, hindi nagmamatch yung stuff. Okay? Sabihin niya, because the remote contains work that you do not have locally. Okay? So, before we could push, we have to pull first. So, kung mag-git pull ako right now, no, most likely magkaka-conflict tayo. Ayun, may conflict na tayo kasi hindi alam ni Git kung anong gagawin niya. So, sige, let's just accept both changes right now. And then, gusto ko ganyan yung mangyari. Then, Git, ito merging nangyayari. So, Git merge. Hindi, Git add muna na tayo. Then, Git merge, continue. No, yeah, sure. And then, we could push now. Okay? You can now push our changes. Kasi gusto ni Git na minamatch mo muna yung remote mo before you could push. So again, ano implications nito? Implications nito, merge conflicts cannot happen from the remote end. They can only happen on your end. Okay? So yun. What happens if two pushes happen at the same time? So, hindi naman by the laws of physics, pero it's a fact na it's impossible. Okay? Kasi networking stuff, no, you could only receive transmissions one at a time anyway. So what happens is the later push will be rejected. So bakit siya marireject? Kasi technically, hindi na updated yung remote mo. Ay, hindi na updated yung local mo compared to the remote. Like yung nangyari kanina. Kasi yun nga, may pumasok na push na iba, di ba? So, marireject lang yung push na later pumasok. Again, reiterating what I said kanina, set up a Git server yourself, pwede. Large companies do this, and you could also run GitHub by yourself. So with all the stuff we've discussed, yung paggawa ng commits, paggawa ng branches, merging, pag-manipulate ng remotes, you should be able to work with Git and GitHub alone. You could also work with Git and GitHub with other people with those skills. Pero we have to know more stuff. Okay? So, you could have different methodologies on doing this. You could work on a single branch, no? Kunyari, may teammate ka, you're only working on the master or the main branch, and then dun lahat. Medyo marumi, pero okay lang. Na walang problema, dalawa lang kayo. Ganun. Or you could work on different branches per person, no? Gagawa ko ng branches, ganito yung pangalan, no? Or you could work on different branches per feature. Again, this is just a standard set by your workplace, set by your organization, or set by your group of people. Okay. Or set by yourself. Then, kapag nagpo-pull, push tayo, fix conflicts, and code along the way. Again, experience is the best teacher. Pero before I do show you that, pakita ko lang paano to si setup for remote collaboration. Okay? So, ideally, sa isang machine, isang credential lang yung nasa iyo. So, kunyari, in my machine, credentials ko is for my account na ito. Okay? So, to add someone else, kasi right now, although public to, everyone can see it, no? Send ko to sa chat, right? Even though everyone can see it, not everyone can contribute, no? So, kunyari may project kayo, no? You could just go to settings, and then you could go to manage access. Okay, so if I have a friend, lagay ko muna yung password ko. No, so if I have a friend, pwede ko silang i-invite. Okay? So, invite ko sila sa, si test 1, Panganiban. Right? Pwede ko siya invite ganyan. And then, magkaka-email notification siya or magkaka-GitHub notification siya. So, in this case, kung maglalogin tayo kay test 1 right now, magkaka-notification siya. No? So here, wala. Okay? Pero kung nasa email, let's go ahead and open a new tab for that. Ito yung patapon email ko. And here you will see I was invited to sample repo 1. Okay? So kung may classmate kayo, and then you're inviting them to a GitHub repo, sabihin nyo sa kanila, check their email. Okay. So, in theory, wait lang. So, Shift T. Nasa incognito yung kabila. Sign in. I have to use this link dito. So ito yung kanina. It's a different browser, different session. I-paste ko yung invitation and then yun yung lilitaw, then na-accept ko lang. Okay? So, you could actually set up anong branches siya pwedeng mag-push. You could protect some of your branches. Kunyari main, ayaw mo na lahat nagpo-push sa main, okay lang din yun. You could actually set that up. It's better na you look that up on your own. Pero yun yung bare minimum na kailangan mo to let other people work on your project. So kunyari, in my machine, nakalogin ako as test 1 Panganiban, pwede na ako mag-push to this repository. Okay? So I hope that's clear. So in a Git server, you have to do additional stuff. Pero with GitHub, it's really this easy. Okay. So ganun yung nangyayari kung may school project ka. Okay, another thing na gusto kong pakita sa inyo, kunyari with my organization, ito, sa DSC, you could set up teams then. Now, I'm not gonna show how exactly we put this up, pero it's free anyway. You could set this up on your own. You could search pa paano mo gagawin. So, basically yung isang team, ito lahat to private, no? Hindi yan nakikita publicly. Hindi na nakikita publicly kung sino yung mga tao. Pero dito lahat mga tao na ini-invite ko to collaborate. Okay? So, kunyari, sa isang team ko, there are also multiple teams inside of it, no? And then, pwede ko sila i-assign per repository. So, kung titignan ko yung settings right now, no? Manage access. You could see here na I've assigned one person to be an admin and then I've assigned some people to maintain. Okay, so basically, some of these guys, wala silang access to a certain branch, certain stuff, no? Stuff like that. So, ganun yun. If contributor ba pwede mag-push sa main branch? I believe pwede. Pwede mag-push sa main branch. And also, pwede mo rin i-restrict kung pwede rin i-restrict kung sino yung makakapag-push. Yun nga, I've been saying that before. What if you want to add a program to your repository for the purpose of a portfolio but you also don't want other programmers copying your code? That's not an option. Okay? Kasi, again, people are asking for your GitHub account to see the work na you have done. Gusto nila makita anong style ng coding mo, paano ka nagko-code, gaano kalinis. Right now, all of my past projects, no, in my profile na hindi private, nakikita nyo yung code. So, ano yung public ko? Public stuff ko. For example, sa YouTube series ko, all of the code here is visible. No? So kung titignan ko yan, and bubuksan ko to, you would see some code there. Okay? Also, some of my older projects, like school projects ko na fortunately, pinayagan ako ng prof na pakita to everyone. Yan. Okay? Kasi if you're new to programming and your problem is kokopyahin yung code mo, you shouldn't really worry about that. Okay? Push lang ng push, kunwari masipag. Yeah. So, let's go back. No? So, other than that, GitHub is also home to many of the world's largest and most influential open source projects. Okay? In my operating systems class, ito makikita to very, very in-depth yung Linux kernel. So, let's look for the Linux GitHub. No? So, if you're running Linux, ito yung kernel that it's running on, no? You could actually clone this. No? It's all open source. Then you could see the code here. So, for example, put ako sa init, no? It's all in C. Then yan, kita mo yung code. Okay, so in my operating systems class, you had to manipulate some of these. So, hopefully, you also have a class na would enable you to work with open source stuff. Okay? So, kung prolific developer ka, you could help develop some of these, no? Linux kernel, Git itself, VLC media player, no? WordPress, stuff like that. Marami pang iba. Now, you can contribute to these without having to be a collaborator using pull requests. So, kunyari, punta ko dun sa incognito session ko na I'm logged in as test1 Panganiban. Punta ako sa mga repos ko right now. Then, for example, hanap tayong repo dito. Okay, for example, over here, no? Sabihin ko, okay, I don't want this, right? Sasabihin ko niyan is, sige, pwede ko i-edit na ganyan. Sabihin ko, Carlos, parang hindi ko trip to eh. Pwede bang alisin natin tong copyright message? Okay? So, ganyan, remove copyright stuff. Okay? Then, propose change. Okay? So, hindi pa yan matic na magagawa. Okay? So, kung yung maintainer nun, sasabihin niya, okay, mukhang goods yung nangyari, pwede na natin i-incorporate yung gawa mo sa repository. So, in my end, no, magkaka-notification ako siguro. Possibly, magkaka-notification ako. Hindi lumabas dito. Let's go here. So, makaka-pull request dito na isa. No? And then, wala. Ano ba yung in-edit ko? Ito. Create pull request. Sorry. So, create pull request over here. And then, if I go back here, possibly lalabas sa inbox ko. Wala pa rin. So, kung mag-F5 ako dito, ayun. Nagka-pull request ako, sinasabi niya, can we remove copyright stuff? Okay, and then, I could open this up. Sasabihin ko, sige, yes, I'll accept it or no. Okay? So, ganun yung pwedeng gawin ganun yung mga stuff na in-add ni GitHub, no? To help with open source development. Okay? So, clone for, okay. Let's go back to that question kanina na tinanong. Okay? Let's go back. I'm scrolling up. Is forking a different story? So, what is forking with GitHub? So, basically, ginagawa ng fork is gawa akong sarili kong repository na nagre-reference sa isa pang repository. Okay, so right now I could fork this. No? I could click on this and fork it. So what happens is, paano ko to visualize? Wala yung pen software ko, so bear with me. So kunyari, ito yung Linux repository ko over here, no? By Linus Torvalds. And then sasabihin ko, okay, can I make my own version of it? No, can I copy it and make my own edits? So dun ka magfo-fork. Okay. This is almost an exact copy of the Linux. Yeah, it's actually an exact copy of the Linux repository at that point in time. Okay, so this is me. Okay? Me. So ako pwedeng gumawa ng commit, no, and then a new commit, and then new commit. No, and then Linux can also make their own commits. No? Independent of what I have done. No? And then later on, sabihin ko, pwede kong gawin, no? Kasi sometimes you could just fork for your own purposes na may ginagawa ka ng project and you just need a modified version of Linux. Okay? So, pero if I want to contribute to the original Linux repository, na sasabihin ko, okay, I believe na my version of Linux is better and I want my version of Linux to improve on the previous one, pwede akong gumawa ng pull request, no? Pull request, PR. Bakit tinatawag ito ng pull request at hindi push request? Kasi kung titignan mo, di ba nagpo-push tayo pa ganyan? Kasi we are requesting the original repository to pull our changes, no? To pull this, to merge with the Linux stuff. Okay, kaya pull request siya. We are requesting, Linus Torvalds, pwede bang kunin mo yung changes ko kasi I believe may improvement ako may bibigay. Okay, so yun yung purpose ng forking. Forking is done if you want a modified version of the original repository or if you want to make some changes before making a pull request to this repository. I hope that's clear. Okay? So, clone is for contributor already. No, I could actually clone this. No, so I don't want to clone Linux kasi that's a very big project. Pero just to show you that it works, no. So over here, buksan ko lang yung git bash, no. Git clone paste. That works. Okay, so I could clone it, ganyan. Hindi lang ako makakapag-push kasi hindi ako contributor. Okay, pero you could do all of those pull requests, stuff like that, I think in the terminal as well. That's also viable. Okay? Pero I'm not going into detail sa ganun kasi sa work tsaka sa school, you really don't do those. Okay? What else? So before I move on to more questions, I could also show you GitHub Classroom. No? So if you're faculty, ako personally, hindi ko pa na-explore yung GitHub Classroom kasi I'm not teaching a class. Pero I have used GitHub Classroom as a student. Okay, so I'll just close this. We're not gonna need that anymore. So bubuksan ko to. So if I go back to home, you would see some repositories here for my classes. No? So kunyari, this one's an old class, CS140 sa UP Diliman is operating systems, no? What they do is they give you a repo to work with, lalagay mo yung code dyan, and then magiging easier for the teacher to check code. No, I think you could automate stuff then with GitHub Classroom. So kung ito, GitHub Classroom to. This is a whole class. Ito lahat ng mga kaklase ko. And ito yung mga repositories na visible sa akin, which is just me. I cannot see the repositories of other people unless I choose to make them public. Okay? So, again, ano pa yung pwede kong pakita? So, sa mga repositories, you could also add a README file. You could also add a license file. No, let's discuss those really quickly over here. So readme file, basically kapag binuksan mo yung GitHub, may papakita siyang description. Okay, and then ganito yung formatting ng description na yun. It's in Markdown. So kung titignan ko yung raw niyan, ganyan yung formatting. So kung nagre-Reddit ka or something, this might be familiar to you kasi they use almost the same syntax. No, Markdown yung tawag dito. Markdown. Again, actually no. We could also introduce git ignores. So just show this to you. This is not GitHub specific. It's for Git in general. For example, may isang file ako dito, my secrets, ganyan. And then kunyari may password ako dito, no? And I don't want this to be pushed sa isang repository or committed into the cancel ko na to. Matagal yan. No? So if I don't want this to be pushed into the repository or included in my commits, I could add a gitignore file which is named .gitignore. Yun yung file format niya actually. And then lalagay ko yung name ng file. So my secrets. No? So kita nyo mag-gray out yan. And then pag nag-git add ako, git commit add git ignore. No? Then kung pinush ko to, mapapansin ninyo sa sample repo natin, hindi included yung secrets. Okay? Again, may mga pattern matching to. I think regex works if you're familiar with regex. Kunyari meron akong ibang file. File1.secret or file2.secret. No? Sabihin natin maraming files na yan, I could just go ahead and ignore those as well. So all of the files that end in secret. So mag-gray out siya. Works the same way. If I have a folder here, my folder, no, and then I have some secret files again, I could make it gitignore inside. So pwede yan. Then just put secret. That works. So mag-gray out siya. Again, if I delete this, again, let's just delete this. That's not supposed to be gray. It's supposed to be green. So secret 1. No? So pwede ko rin gawin kasi dahil ito relative yan, I have to do my folder secret 1. No? And then mag-gray out yan. So ganun nangyayari yung ganun gumagana yung gitignore. Okay, so I'll just go through some of the questions here. Can I host my website through GitHub? Yes, you can. Actually, mga static na website you can host through GitHub. It's better na you should look that up on your own, pero basically may repository ka and then magkakasarili kang domain parang github.io or something. No? A lot of people actually do that na parang carlospanganiban.github.io or some shit. Okay? Pwede yun. It's actually a common thing. Gagawin nila, bibili na lang sila ng domain and then magpo-point lang dun. It's free hosting. Basically, free hosting of files. Pero kung server siya, sabihin natin Node.js, Ruby on Rails, Laravel, or Apache, Nginx, hindi nag-work yun. Kailangan magbayad ka for cloud computing. Okay. What else do we have? Again, there are a lot of questions regarding interfaces. I do not recommend using a GUI. You have to learn the terminal. Okay, a real programmer uses the terminal. Okay, hindi lang for Git, for everything else. Actually, we use the terminal. So yun nga, any questions about the UI, I really won't answer. It's not much as terminal supremacy, pero if you go back then in the 70s and the 80s, wala naman desktop stuff eh. So yung actual computer programming, it is rooted in the terminal. No? Arguably you can program without the use of a terminal, pero that's like 1% of the programmers in the world na nagde-develop, right? So Yes, you have to be very comfortable with the terminal, at least before you graduate. No, in the case of my colleagues at UP, uh, freshman ka pa lang, kailangan familiar ka na sa terminal. Kunyari, nag-run ka ng Java, ganyan. You have to compile your Java from terminal. You have to compile your Java program using the terminal. You shouldn't rely on interfaces masyado. Okay, actually, before we end my slides, I do have some questions here from the audience again. What are GitHub's limitations? So, the main limitation on GitHub is hindi siya completely private. Again, Microsoft owns GitHub. So, even though you make your own repository private, no, I do have some private repositories over here, nakikita pa rin ng GitHub mismo yan or kung sino man may-ari ng GitHub. Okay, so kung big company ka, tendency mo, you just set up your own servers. Okay, you host your own servers in your own infrastructure. Is GitHub safe? For Git, everything is safe as you want them to be. Pwede kang gumamit ng Git na never mag-online, never magre-remote. And yun, okay? For GitHub, there's no telling. Yun nga, we don't know if Microsoft is getting data from private repos in the first place. No? Pero a good principle of software engineering and software programming tuloy. Software development in general is you shouldn't worry about your code being public. No, okay lang manakaw yung software ko. Importante lang sa atin as software developers is yung data wag maging public. So kung Facebook ka, walang pakialam yung Facebook kung malik yung code ng Facebook, malik yung algorithms niya. Walang pakiyan. Pero may pakiyan, kunyari yung user credentials, malik yan, lahat ng photos malik. So if you're in that field, you should worry about data more over your code. Kasi inevitably, if it's in the internet, eventually mananakaw din yan. Okay? So, can I use GitHub on a lower end machine? Definitely. Okay, again, Git goes back in the 70s and the 80s probably. Actually, I'm wrong. Git was invented in 2005 pero version control back in the 70s and the 80s pa. Actually, I could run Git sa paano ba to? Ilang MB of RAM lang pwede yung Git. Okay, sa mga Raspberry Pi, pwede yung Git, stuff like that. No? I believe may mga tao na nagpapagana ng Git sa mga pregnancy test. Parang ganun, kung computerized yung pregnancy test. So, gaano kaliit yung machine mo, you could definitely run Git. GitHub naman is just an interface to Git. It's just a platform, so you don't have to worry about specs in that regard. So, what else? How about using other tools aside from Git and GitHub? Again, yung viable tools lang na I could imagine is VS Code's live share. Sorry. Definitely, it has its own uses. Kunyari, parehas kayong gising, parehas kayong nagwo-work ng friend mo, and you want to work at the same time, you could use live share. No? Pero for larger project development, your best bet talaga is Git or GitHub. No, kasi this is the most widely used system out there. So is Git difficult to master? I started using Git when I was in 10th grade, I think, or 11th grade. Actually, dun din ako naging comfortable with the terminal, working with the terminal. And the learning curve is worth it. No? Para sa akin, hindi naman siya learning cliff. Kasi yung pinakamalaking challenge mo lang dyan is not being familiar with the terminal. Okay, once you're familiar with the terminal, this shouldn't be really hard. No? And once you develop your way of thinking of how to manage projects using Git, it's really not that difficult anymore. So my team doesn't know how to use Git or GitHub. What can you advise us? So masasabi ko lang dito is kung nagugutom ka na and hindi ka marunong kumain, then mamamatay ka na lang sa gutom. Okay? So I really can't advise anything else but to learn. So parang sinabi mo sa akin, yung team ko, engineering, tapos hindi marunong mag-math, anong gagawin ko? Problema mo na yun. Okay? So, yun. I think this is the last slide in my presentation and that ends my stuff. So, questions?
Ayan. Thank you so much for your valuable contributions at our Let's Get It On webinar. The floor is now open for question and answers. We will be answering your questions right here in the chat box below. So you can chat us here in Microsoft Teams or in our live stream over at FEU ACM. So, first question po. Ito, si Ma'am Resty Aldana. So po siyang faculty, po namin. And our advisor actually here at ACM. Ang tanong po niya is, there are IDEs that include the GitHub facility. How exactly does it work?
Okay. For example, yung VS Code ko right here, by default, I think VS Code has Git functionality. Okay, so kita nyo dito, may mga green stuff like here, alam na niya yung mga nag-iba. Okay, so kung kinlik ko tong tab na to, source control, right, may changes akong ganyan, may plus, add this to the staging, and then I could commit. No? I could put a commit here, change, git ignore. Okay. So, makikita natin ganyan. Yung IDE natin in this case, well, di naman siya talaga IDE text editor yung VS Code. Pero as simple as a text editor, may Git integration na siya. Most text editors din meron like Vim, Atom.io if you use that. Visual Studio also has that. You could learn it on your own. It's very specific. I really don't want to teach it kasi that takes time again. Pero yun, most text editors, they do have integration. Pero the question is, how does it work? If the question is, how does it work on my end na parang paano ko pinapagana, ganun siya. I could make commits from here. I could track my changes, track stuff like that. Okay? Pero if the question is, how does it work technically? I believe yung software mismo ng VS Code is nagpo-poll siya. Like, once in a while, kinakausap niya yung Git mismo, the software, and then tinitignan niya kung ano yung nangyari. So, ganun nangyayari behind the scenes. So, yun, that's how it works with different text editors and IDEs.
Ayan po. Ito pa po, isang follow-up question po from me personally. Do you think po ba na by using Git and GitHub, mabe-benefit po ba dito yung mga teachers and professors po?
Oh, definitely. Like, I could imagine how much time you could save kung gumagamit ka ng GitHub Classrooms. I think GitHub Classrooms yung platform for that. Even though hindi ka gumagamit ng GitHub Classrooms, ma-automate mo rin yan. So, if you are a faculty, definitely you should be experienced in programming. No? So, kunyari, may Python program ako, for example, no, and then sasabihin mo sa students mo, okay, students, can you send me your username for GitHub? So, meron akong mga usernames, no? Ganyan. Then, andito yung name ko, si G. Panganiban, and then someone else, no? Ganyan. And then, sasabihin mo sa class mo, okay, class, you have to name your repository as something like my midterm project, no? For what subjects? Yes, 200, parang ganyan, no? And then pwede kang gumawa ng script mo na automatically nagko-clone, automatically nagfe-fetch ng mga stuff mo, like pwede niyang i-concatenate to, for example, ganyan. Magkakaganyan tayo, na-for loop mo yan, then kuklone mo yan. No, that's possible. And then, you could automate yung nga yung pag-run ng ganyan. Okay? So, definitely there's a lot of potential for automation na hayaan mo lang yung mga students mo mag-submit and then ikaw wala ka nang gagawin. Gagawa ka lang ng script na pang-check. which is ginagawa namin sa Department of Computer Science in Diliman. Na we all have automated stuff, so we don't have to spend hours and hours na manual nag-check ng programs, na automatically download yung program, then automatically check siya. So, yun. It is very, very important to use. It's a very, very useful tool to have as faculty.
Ayan, eto naman po. May tanong po dito. What are other version control systems that are used besides Git? Yan po ba kayong example?
Okay. Masasabi ko na from experience, yun yan, 99% of people use Git for version control. Like 95, 99%. As of now, wala pa akong kilala na hindi gumagamit ng Git. Even yung mga matatanda, like yung mga nag-imbento ng C, ganyan, nag-imbento ng C++, ginagamit nila Git. Yung nag-imbento ng PHP, ginagamit nila Git. So, there are other version control systems. You could look them up in Google, pero I cannot give you like solid examples off the top of my head kasi hindi ko talaga alam. Okay? Pero yun nga, this is the most widely used one, and yun.
Okay po. In terms of text editors po, what is the best that you can recommend for those people transitioning from IDEs into text editors? Kasi po, di ba po, mga IDE usually doesn't have any integration with Git or GitHub. Usually po text editors po sila. So what can you recommend?
Kasi when you're going to move to a text editor, you should be really comfortable with the terminal in the first place. Kasi yung mga IDEs, ginawa sila for a specific environment. So may IDE ka for Java, Eclipse, no? I'm sure you've heard of Eclipse. May IDE ka for C, C++, which is Visual Studio, or C#. No? Those are very tailor-made para sa environment sa mga languages na yun. So isang button lang, magko-compile na yung Java mo. Now, if you're comfortable na with the terminal, you could just do everything with the text editor. And what I recommend for a text editor is VS Code. Kasi I do believe most of the audience is using Windows. So VS Code is definitely the go-to text editor for me. Although some veterans use Vim, VIM, na ubiquitous. Kahit yung mga pinakamabagal na machine, they could run Vim. Pero VS Code pa rin yung ma-advise ko dyan.